Good evening, afternoon, morning, whatever you've got, wherever you are. And welcome to the latest edition of FreeThought Hour, which features, by the skin of her teeth, again, last minute, Tercia. Hello, how the devil are you?
I made it. I made it. Shall we say? There we go. I made it.
Good.
I'm good.
Welcome.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Well, stop going upside down and
Sorry. Here we go.
Join me to welcome our guest from Delaware, Nate Wyatt. How the devil are you, Nate?
Hi, everybody. I'm actually from Delaware County in Pennsylvania.
Right. Okay. So that means very little to me, except that I know Pennsylvania a bit. It's very wooded.
Yeah, sure is.
Yeah, you drive along highways and there's just trees. Acres and acres of trees and then more trees after that.
That would be, that's pretty much everywhere they have it built was all covered in trees to begin with, It's more like they just cut them away as we go.
Yeah. So it's well named, isn't it? Sylvania.
Pennsylvania.
Sylvania means wooded.
Does it?
Yeah.
It's named after, it means Penn's Woods, right? After William Penn.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, enough of that nonsense. So you're a self-described anti-theist.
I am.
That's a bit stronger than atheist, isn't it? What do you mean by that?
A lot of people equate anti-theism with like a sort of a strong assertion and belief that there is no God, but that's not really the position that I take or call anti-theism. My position is that I feel like the act of worship and religion itself are sort of inherently harmful in ways that can't be removed from the source of the things that make it corrupt can't be removed from the actual systemic sort of arrangement that that religion provides. It's sort of a command structure, and it's based a lot on preying on people who are more vulnerable.
Yeah. I know where you're coming from, because when I was in hospital about 10 years ago, guess who came to my bedside?
And the thing is, of course, that individual who visited you was well intentioned. In their view, they were trying to do you a favor and help you through a hard time.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it could be said that like you could have used some real help instead. Yeah,
which I was getting, of course, from the hospital and the medicos who were working there.
Right. If you really want to help, like, get involved in, literally helping rather than, doing that. It doesn't really.
Yeah. Do some real help. Yeah.
I would like to get into a little bit of terminology. So James Apperson made a comment that he said that he's anti-theist in regards the Abrahamic and more authoritarian types of beliefs. So that made me think, I was actually, theism means God or gods, am I right? So if you're if anybody could just quickly help me on that. I know that theist is somebody who believes, is it God or plural gods?
Yep.
Is it just God? Which in which case I'd be an anti-theist as well. I was listening to a podcast earlier this week and I thought to myself, I'm an atheist anti-theist. I don't think one could be a religious anti-theist, but that would be sort of a juxtaposition that would be unresolvable.
Yeah.
But I wonder whether it's possible to be an anti-theist just regarding some religions, or whether it's so with, I don't know what terminology is always interesting to me, but I am becoming more and more of an anti-theist myself, and I think that we need to be clear about terminology. So yeah, thank you, Nate. I don't think I needed to be converted, but yeah, this idea that we need worship, that we need to worship something or someone, it's just why?
Yeah.
I agree. I definitely agree with that viewpoint. Absolutely. I do. I feel like it doesn't even really, I mean, really, it doesn't really matter what sort of religion you're, there's all kinds of different faiths people have in different kinds of gods or spirits or beings or, you know, aliens or whatever it is that they want to believe in it. But the thing is, from my perspective, it's like, it's fine for you to believe in something based on your subjective experience. But when you try to enforce those beliefs in legislation or, you know, try to convince other people that those things are true without them having had the same experiences that convinced you that it's true, and expecting them to believe or alternately shunning them if they just stand their ground.
Yeah.
That's not, you know, and honestly, I can't think of a single religion that, I mean, okay, maybe 2 or 3 that aren't like, well, you know, our religion is the real religion.
The only
All
true
the other religions, no, they're no good. They're no good. But we got the, you know, the real God. And
that is the sort of dogmatic and as James says, moral authoritarian version, isn't it? And this does seem to be very common. I mean, I know you refer to other religions that are not quite like that. They're more libertarian. I assume you're thinking of Buddhism, for example. But these moral authoritarian religions, they assert themselves much more, don't they? They are demanding, and that's why some people are so anti them. They have to take the anti and stick it onto atheism to make it stronger.
Yeah, it's not that I'm like railing against the real God. You know, it's that I'm railing against the practice of theism itself. It's just it doesn't really contribute much to the conversation, and it definitely asks for a lot. And there's so many problems just in the general sort of setup of every organized religion that I've ever heard of. For example, the teachings literally are counter to a fact-based education.
Yeah.
In other words, your children will learn at school that, you know, the universe started and we don't know how, but it exists, and that's axiomatic. So there's no sense arguing that it doesn't exist because it obviously does. And, you know, that the actions and interactions between matter and space-time, which are basically the constituents of the reality that we exist in, are the result of prolonged restrictive sort of rules that prevent things from acting in other ways, that restrict the actions that can happen. And that's what causes things like the planets to form and the stars, as opposed to the picture that, you know, whatever it is, like the back of a turtle, or, you know, somebody made a wish. I just don't understand that perspective at all.
The fairy story version.
A lot of people do say that my view is like disrespectful, but I feel like not really. I kind of respect people a little more than to think that they could be so easily taken in by like what is, I mean, honestly, obviously it's a very false narrative. If everybody says they're the right one and they're all true, then they can't all be the true one. It's impossible. So
they disagree. So only one of them could be true at best, and probably
at best one. That's exactly the point.
Yeah.
I want to run something by you, gentlemen. It's partly based on something that James said and my comment about correct terminology, and then something that you just mentioned as well, Nate. So it's not really a question, it's more I'd like to hear what you guys think. The idea behind believing something and the idea behind theism as or any sort of religion, but in particular the Abrahamic and the monotheistic faiths. The one distinguishing element between just believing something and having a theistic adherence to a faith is the element of worship.
Yeah.
Because if I mean, I can believe in aliens, but that doesn't by default mean that I have to believe worship aliens. I believe that Hitler existed, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to worship Hitler or Genghis Khan or whatever. And I wonder if that's not something that we don't emphasize enough, and that might be the reason why the concept of anti-theism is actually really important, because acknowledging that somebody believes something, be it a false belief or a true belief. I mean, I used to believe that homeopathic medicine was effective. I no longer believe that. But even when I believed that homeopathic medicine was effective, because there is no worship element, I would say to people, you can try it, but if it doesn't work, fine. But the problem with belief is that this deity, this entity that one believes in, has to be worshipped. And worship by default means that there's an element of reverence. And that element of reverence is taken to such an extent that if I revere you and the next person doesn't revere you, then by implication, the person who doesn't revere the entity I believe in is also not revering me, although we don't always complete that circle. I'd like to hear what you guys think about that.
Yeah, it makes an enemy, doesn't it? Immediately.
I don't know so much about an enemy. I feel like I can talk to anybody if they can, present their arguments in a thoughtful way. But I also feel like if you want to talk about belief, when you say that you believe something, it means that you are convinced that it is true, right? Because there's no such thing as like a half of a belief. It's not like a gas gauge, right? Where you kind of believe it or you believe it all the way. You either are convinced, completely convinced that it's true, or you remain unconvinced, whether you hold it to be true or not. And I would also say that, believing in something that you haven't been convinced is true, but have only just taken it on faith, there's already a name for that. When you act as though you believe something, whether it's actually true or not, and that is called pretending. It's called pretending, and to just like insert another word in place of pretending to make it seem like people can't be allowed to question it is I just don't understand the mentality behind that at all.
I agree with you, Nate. I would just like to, maybe I miscommunicated. Would you agree with my idea that religious belief in a deity, be it a false belief or not, is one element of that belief is the element of also worshipping that deity. So it's I could theoretically believe whether my evidence for it is good or bad, or whatever the reason for my belief is. I might believe in ghosts, but that does not necessarily mean that I have to revere or worship that ghost. But the distinguishing factor in religious beliefs is the element of worship. So it's almost two ideas, and it's not so much the idea of believing something, whether for bad or good reasons or based on bad or good evidence.
Right.
What I think makes religious beliefs, especially the monotheistic beliefs, very dangerous is that there's this one entity, and it's not good enough believing in his existence. You have to worship that entity, because I mean, if God were to appear to me right here, right now, I would have to be convinced, or let's say something happens to me and I have an experience and I become convinced that there is a God. The Bible teaches that Satan believes in God. He knows he exists. He fights against him, but he doesn't worship him. And I think that's the danger of in particular religious beliefs, because not all false beliefs are equally dangerous, because not all false beliefs require adherence to worship. And that's why I like your view of anti-theism.
Well, I gotta say, I feel like the definition of a god does include that it's something that you worship, or else it's not really a god at all. Or that is to say, like, to say that a being can have created everything, controls everything that happens, those are already worshiping terms, even just defining it. It's everywhere, and it's all perfect and can never make a mistake and everything. The whole definition of it is just an idea to worship, an idea of worshiping.
Yeah. It's worship made real, in quotes, isn't it? And that is the danger, because other beliefs, you can believe in what should we say, quantum theory, for example, but Tertius is right. That doesn't come with a compulsory worship aspect, but religious beliefs do.
I have to say again, that's because the word belief, not really the right word for it. It's pretense. It's actually pretense.
And
when you say it like that, it's really obvious. You know what I mean? When you say it like what it, religious pretense is, not. You see what I mean?
And until you've justified substantiated the existence of this God, there's no reason to go to the second stage and insist that it should be worshipped. So what I want to point out here is that it's who are we supposed to be worshipping here? Because so far as I've become aware, there's no evidence for the existence of any creator deity. So the person who requires us to be subservient and to obey, that's a human. That's a human who's purporting to be an agent for his God on earth, isn't it?
Absolutely. Or at least, pretends to know a lot more about a subject and just tells other people what the thing is. I mean, like a fortune teller or a circus carnival barker, a minister or a preacher can just go up in front of their congregation and say literally anything they want, and nobody in the crowd will even fact check any of it.
No.
I mean, you could literally read fake verses out of the Bible and nobody would challenge it.
Yeah.
I want to get a little bit personal. I want to ask you, were you like me in the sense that I only came to my intellectual to a certain extent, because I'm still learning and growing every day, I hope, in my 40s? Were you always an anti-theist? Was there a time in your life when you were actually atheist? And living in Pennsylvania, am I safe to presume that if you were a theist, it would have been some sort of Christian? Would you be willing to talk to us about that?
I mean, of course, I didn't know what to think when I was a very young man, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. I wasn't sure what to think. I mean, I knew that the stuff they told me in school was definitely true because they explained it very, like, how it worked and how they knew what was true about it. And, you know, here's how we know that this is true. And so that, you know, that lends a lot of credibility to a story. But then my parents would take me to church and stories would come up and I would ask questions. And, you know, of course, if you ask a question in front of everybody, everybody looks to the leader to speak. But what I did was I waited till I had people alone and I would just ask them a question about what we talked about in church that day. But I would ask the same question to different people.
Uh-huh.
And they never had agreements on what any of it meant. Never.
Yeah.
You know, it, like, when I learned about Noah's Ark, I was like, man, that seems like really hard to believe. And I asked my Sunday school teacher and I asked the pastor and I asked one of my parents' friends and I asked an adult that I felt like I could trust. And they all said something ranging from, well, you know, it's a parable. It's important to learn from the story rather than to take it literally, all the way up to, well, you know, if God wants penguins to march to, you know, Israel, then they will. So, you know.
Yeah, what the hell is the lesson in the parable about creating a bunch of people, then realizing that you made a mistake, and then drowning all the people and animals? What's the message there?
I think the lesson there is that you should definitely be afraid of God because he could kill everybody at any time.
Yeah.
As long as a couple people live.
Yeah. And we've had so much rain lately, it could be happening soon.
Yes, sir.
We haven't had any rain, and it seems that we're going to have a warmer than normal winter, which is very bad because that means that we might be hitting a drought.
It's turning winter there.
How open would you describe yourself as any type of activist for atheism or anti-theism? How active are you? How out are you? And what were the consequences about being out if you are?
Most of my activism is really focused around social media. I follow a lot of apologists and other activists on both sides of the debate, and, you know, get involved in the discussion. But when I make comments on people's posts, instead of thinking about just trying to, you know, prove them wrong or counter what they're saying, what I do is I try to write something that speaks to both the person who wrote the post, but also to the people who read the comments.
Yeah.
And try to say something that, like, you know, will spark a thought, a cogent thought in their mind rather than just a glib, you know, comeback. I mean, I'm not going to say that I don't make my glib comebacks, especially if someone starts being abusive. But generally I tend to try to really stay, you know, keep my cool and be rational and just, you know, calmly say, well, in reality, this isn't supported by the facts.
Yeah. On the subject of supporting propositions by facts, in tonight's news, which I've just played, you know, the Global Atheist News Show, which goes out before this one, the Roman Catholic Church is currently discussing.
I agree.
Yes, that was a slip of the tongue that was accurate. It's currently discussing how they should decide whether holy miraculous apparitions can be verified. Okay, so they're looking at reports of weeping statues and miraculous healing and divine apparitions, because they've noticed that some of these supernatural phenomena may not be true. And
no, should.
Yes, I know.
Hey, what's up on that?
Caught me off guard with that one. Wait, did you repeat that?
That's progress. That's progress.
Yes, yes, yes. She said no shit.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
I didn't
Oh,
hear
my hearing is worse than I thought then. So the thing is that the Vatican is thinking about this at the moment. They've got their dicastery for the doctrine of the faith, and they're trying to lay out rules on how to assess the truthfulness of claims such as the Mother Mary, the Virgin Mary, appeared before children promising miracles, like happened in Lourdes way back now, last century or the one before that, or at Fatima in Portugal, where, according to the rumor, she promised miracles to children, and then the crowds witnessed the sun zigzagging across the sky, and that actual event was recognized as officially true by the Roman Catholic Church in 1930. But
1930.
yeah, yeah. But since then, they've found other claims.
We had airplanes by then.
Yeah. They've. I know this is after man had learned to fly, for example, and had the First World War. Yes. Anyway, since then they found other similar claims of appearances of a supernatural nature to be baloney. So what is puzzling me is what criteria did they use, and how are they going to tweak these criteria to be better in future, and why don't they apply these criteria to the rest of their claims about their religion?
I don't really know. That's a funny story. Oh my goodness. I don't even know what to think about that. What are they going to do? I mean, what are they going to say?
Yeah. Well, watch this space. It's ongoing now.
I will. That's so funny. That is so
one of my favorite stories is about the weeping statue, where everybody came and gathered some of her tears and drank the holy water, praying for healing. And then subsequently, the reason that she was found to be weeping, because the water was coming out of the eyes of this statue, was because there was a toilet upstairs leaking.
It's a miracle.
Yes.
It's a miracle.
It's a miracle that fewer people got sick and died because they were drinking fresh water.
Yes. Well, there you go. It's all good fun, though, isn't it?
But Ned, I want to ask. I don't know. We tried to steer away from politics, so let me just get my bearing straight. Pennsylvania's on the west coast of the states. Am I right? You're not
The East Coast.
East Coast. That's right. Northeast. Okay. Okay. That's assuming that the Earth is indeed a globe, which I'm convinced of based on the preponderance of evidence. So it's on the East Coast. So it's close to the area that the original settlement of America took place. And how far are you from New York? Have you been to a certain court events? And the reason I'm asking this is because this whole idea of worship and religion and anti-theism is very prime in my mind at this moment in time, because I follow American politics way more than I do South African politics. And the one thing that I'm particularly interested in is the cult of Donald Trump. And having followed what's happened over the past 4 years and thinking about religion and religious beliefs, I am continually amazed by the desire for humans to worship something or someone, even if that entity is a person like Donald Trump. And what I find particularly strange about this whole thing in America is that the American Revolution took place because the colonists didn't want to pay taxes to a king that they had no affiliation, that they felt had no right to rule them.
Yep.
but the kind of veneration that people give to MAGA people give to Donald Trump is what I see is so much akin to worship. I mean, the way that if you look at the news conferences with the court case, where you have the Speaker of the House and some other Republican politicians, they're standing there with the same blue outfits and the red ties, and they stand sort of in a phalanx. How primitive is that? What does somebody like you, who's an anti-theist, what do you make of seeing the almost the coming to life of theistic type of beliefs in the persona of one of your politicians?
One thing about the political environment in America that I've noticed over the past maybe 8, 12 years, that's a lot different than when I was young, is that the candidates today are all chosen specifically to spite the other party. And they try to pick the guy who the other guys don't like to polarize the vote and get more votes that way. So it's not like they think that Donald Trump is a good leader. They just think that most people will rally behind him because he will make the Biden people mad or whatever they say. I got to be honest with you, I don't really follow politics very closely at all, but I mean, even on the more liberal side of things, you see a lot of like just Eddie sort of. I mean, I got to be honest. To me, it feels like it doesn't really matter too much politically who's in office because they all do the same thing. They just work to expand their power and maintain and expand their pay. Maintain, expand their power and their pay. And that's pretty much all. You can count on them to promise to do all kinds of things. And policies do get passed as long as you include some clauses that give pay raises to the people who need to agree to it. Right? But policy is it's up in the air. Everybody's just trying to block everybody else from accomplishing. It went from people working together, and the majority voting kind of picture has been more polarized over time to the point now where everybody's just trying to stop the other guy from accomplishing anything.
Wow. Okay. Well, you sound like American politics the way I do about South African politics. We're going out to vote on the 29th of this month, in fact. So I'm still thinking I probably will vote. I have always voted. I'll probably vote again, although I have absolutely no faith, neither literally nor figuratively, in any of the politicians that we can vote for. John, do you have a question? Because I want to circle back to your daily life and what you do for a living and how out and open you are as an anti-theist in your daily life. If you don't have anything else that interests you, John, I'm curious to know how your atheism impacts your daily life, where you go out and about in the world.
Go ahead with that. Yeah, sure.
I'm actually I about a little less than 2 years ago, I had a really huge abscess on my spinal cord and I ruptured my spine. And so I'm wheelchair bound. I don't get to get out a lot, which is when I really started getting heavily into doing online activism and following apologists around. I don't want to say I follow them around and troll them because that's not what I do. I just read their news and the parts that aren't true, I say, hey, that's not true. So that's really the extent of my activism. I also do some writing. I do comedy writing and art, and that's kind of what I do for my job. I make custom art. Oh, check this out. I have something right here I'm working on. My neighbor wanted me to paint his helmet to match his motorcycle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, pretty cool. Flame.
Good. Yeah, it came out pretty good.
Yeah.
Nice. It needs a couple more coats of clear, But
I'm sorry about your health problems. Tell me a little bit more about who's your favorite apologist.
Who's my favorite
Kenny
apologist?
Brown, the top 3 apologists that you like to engage with?
I've been following around Christian Walcott, David Walcott, Christian apologist on Facebook for a few months and having discussions with him. The first time we talked, we actually had a pretty engaging talk, but we hit a wall when he was unable to present evidence that countered the evidence that I presented that people can't come back from the dead. I was like, here's the thing, buddy. You're saying I can't prove it, but that doesn't matter. The thing is, you have to prove it ever happened in the first place. And we kind of ran into a dead end there. So the next week when I engaged with him, he sort of was very standout, didn't want to talk with me. But since then, I try to engage. Like I said, I don't try to be mean. I try to engage thoughtfully. Yeah. So he has kind of come around and been talking to me again over the past 2 months, which I'm glad about. I appreciate, the look into, the other view. I appreciate, the perspective and things like that into the other view. But the thing that nobody ever gets to is, well, how did you originally start actually believing it was true? And
can I get that name? I didn't. I got my a notepad here. David Walcott. Could you spell that for me?
Yeah, it's WOLCOTT.
WAL.
No, double. Yeah, Walcott.
COT with it 1 T.
Double T.
Double T. Double L double T. Okay, great. So who else have you got on your list? I want to pay some of these people a visit. If they'll allow me to befriend them. I love apologists. I have my own fair attempts at interacting with apologists. Who else have you got on your list of friends?
Gosh, I follow so many people, but a lot of it is, online groups and things like that where people are discussing their golly, should I pull out my phone? Here, let me.
Well, I was actually hoping that you've had contact with somebody like William Lane Craig, but
usually what I do is I talk to one person for a while and then try to look for somebody else to talk to. And David Walcott has been on my radar for the past 3 or 4 months, so I don't really remember who I talked to before. I should probably start keeping records because, like I said, I'm starting to think about trying to put out my own content too. Yeah. But you need to know who's who and what you're talking about in those kind of situations. And that's something I traditionally don't really. I engage people one at a time because that's where I shine the best. You know what I mean?
I get you. Okay, and you sort of just reach out to them on social media, and then you're lucky enough that they respond. Or do you actually call any of these? Have you had any personal interactions, either telephonically or like we're having something now, or is it all online, Facebook, Twitter?
Well, no, not just on Facebook. I'm actually a member of a couple of organizations. I'm a minister in the Unitarian Universalist Church, and I'm also a member of the Philadelphia Congregation of the Satanic Temple. I joined both of those because I felt like, first of all, that being a minister would lend a little bit of weight to things that I have to say to people who are, like on the line of belief and trying to decide. I feel like if someone is a minister can talk to them and frankly and honestly, that I might be able to help somebody. That's the point of that. And then I'm a member of the Satanic Temple because Aaron Ra joined, and that his reasons for joining were all the same reasons I always thought that I might join, but I was hesitant to join because it's joining an organization and it's called the Satanic Temple, which of course people are going to misread that as like some kind of like I worship the devil or something.
Baby eating club.
Wow.
You can't even believe what they'll say.
I know that I've met Aaron. He was in South Africa in 2020, just before the pandemic, and I met him. So you can check out my video with Aaron Ra. That was quite fun. But I want to ask about this whole Satanic Temple thing. I'm actually also friends with a South African. He's an academic, a young academic. His TikTok handle is The Friendly Atheist. No, the friendly Satanist. Sorry. The friendly Satanist. He's currently completing his PhD in theology and philosophy. Very smart young guy. Has a beautiful speaking voice as well. Sings and is very musical. And this whole idea about Satanism and being like joining the Satanist temple, it's sort of, I get why somebody would, and I've considered it myself. But why? Don't you think it confuses people and muddies the waters? I'm so glad that I found out about you being a member of the Satanic Temple. What made you decide to go that step and join that particular organization?
He wanted to worship Satan. He wanted to be submissive.
No, actually, there are two actual, like, legitimate reasons why. One is the Satanic Temple is heavily involved in activism, okay, and the Constitution of the United States guarantees religious freedom.
Yeah.
So when people who follow a specific religion try to put policies in place that favor one religion over another, the Satanic Temple can step in and ask for the same favors.
Yes.
And as soon as the Satanic Temple becomes involved, the people who asked for the favors immediately change their mind. They don't want it anymore.
No, it's a privilege busting organization, isn't it?
That's a big part. I don't think that's what it is necessarily, but that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
The other reason is a little bit harder to explain. The other main reason, but it's the people. I feel like the people who will take it the wrong way and won't understand what it means and what it is when you explain it, they're exactly the same people that are the problem to begin with.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? The only people that we're muddying the waters with are people who already didn't understand and will refuse to understand anyway.
Yeah, that their water's already muddied. Yeah.
Exactly. You couldn't get any cloudier.
Yeah. So it reminds me a bit of the Pastafarians, because, of course, a friend of ours in British Columbia is he's in a dispute at the moment with his local driving authorities because he wants to wear his tricorn hat in his driving license picture, you see. and they won't permit that, but he's protesting that this is his religious headgear, and if he was a Sikh, he'd be permitted to wear a turban in his driving photograph. So what's going on? And this is
that's a good point. I wonder if maybe Pastafarianism just isn't registered as an official religion in that state yet.
It is, but
wow.
Yeah, but the bureaucrats won't accept it as genuine for some reason.
So I want to push back a little bit about this thing of muddying the waters, and so if maybe I should become the Pastafarian priestess in South Africa, because I can see myself going all out for Pastafarianism. Can't you just see me with a colander? I mean, I'm sure it'll suit me brilliantly.
It's either a colander or a tricorn. You can choose.
No, I'll go for the colander. I think it's fun. It's nice and shiny.
The colander, yep.
I think it makes, I mean, the tricorn is going to make me look as if I want to play Pirates of the Caribbean. And that's perhaps not a look. If I looked anything like who's that beautiful girl who played in it, who starred in it? Come on, now I've forgotten. If I look like that, I mean, I would have done the dress and everything, but I don't. So I'll have to go for the colander. But maybe that is what I want to push back against when I say that I think, while I understand the whole premise behind Satanism, and I've read about it, and I don't criticize it at all, not at all. And I think it also depends where one is situated, but it's sort of looking for making it difficult for people to understand, because so many millions of people do believe in an actual Satan.
Right.
And maybe I'm speaking as a South African, where I know for a fact that most Christians, and on last census, I think 85% of South Africans adhere to some form of Christianity, and I would say that even fairly liberal South African Christians, even Methodists or Baptists, definitely believe in a literal Satan. So for me to say that I'm a Satanist, I can see that that would confuse. I can see that would confuse people. That I'm actually also believing in a supernatural entity.
Yeah, but I never say that I'm a Satanist.
Okay, but if one did, for example, like this young guy that I know, who, I mean, his Twitter handle, he's the friendly Satanist, and that he, and so there are many people who they're Satanists.
Sure.
If you want to use the if there's a group and you're a member of that group because you think that group has, I mean, obviously you don't have to say that you're a member of that group. Like, but I don't know. I don't get it. Why would one, rather than become a Pastafarian? Because, and that's what I mean when I say the whole idea of having the Satan, this church of Satan, Satanist temple. I think it's really, I don't think it's a good idea, frankly.
Right. Well, the thing is that, gosh, I had something so smart to say just a second ago. 1 second ago.
It happens.
While you remember that, I want to point out that the Sunday Assembly has had a similar difficulty, because the first time they started, which was in London, they were described in the press as the atheist church. And that got a lot of attention, but it gave the message that they didn't want. They didn't want people to think in terms of atheism being a religion that involves worship and meeting in a church. They wanted to say, look, we can meet on a Sunday, sing a bit, have a few cakes, and it's got nothing to do with religion. That's what the message they wanted to get across.
That's true, and well, I think I kind of remember what I wanted to say too. It's like, you know, people who say that they worship Satan, and people who believe in a literal Satan, they have a name for that, but it's not called a Satanist. It's called a Christian, is a person who believes in Satan. Now, whether they actually worship the God or the Satan, they're still Christian lore.
Yes.
So I again, the people who, you know, and if I explain to you, like, well, the thing is, it's only a metaphor for an adversary to other organized religions trying to overstep the boundaries of other people's freedom. And they accept that answer, then those people's waters are muddied beyond what you can do anyway. Like I said, if I can explain it to you rationally and you can accept what I've said as being at least possible, then there's no reason, you know what I'm saying, to still feel like, oh, well, Satan is scary.
Yeah.
If you're right in a literal Satan, that's because you're following Christian mythology.
You're right. It's exactly. It's only the Christians who believe in both God and Satan. The rest of us think neither of them are believable because there's no evidence to substantiate them.
And again, the name Satan, it does mean adversary, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
So what's the organization that you and Oren belong? It's the Satanist Temple. It's not, I always forget. I know there's two.
The Satanic Temple.
The Satanic Temple. The Satanic Temple. That's right.
It's a non-theistic organization.
Hmm.
Lots of bake sales, things like that.
Oh, are the cookies black?
We didn't hear that.
I said a lot of bake sales and things like that.
I said, are the cookies black? Black and red?
Devil's food cake.
Evil cookies. They'd be dark chocolate.
So did either of you watch the Netflix series Midnight Mass? Because Nate, something that you said reminded me of that. Have you seen it, Midnight Mass on Netflix?
I don't remember. Maybe you could refresh my memory a little.
It's actually brilliant. It's a mini series. John, we should have a watch party on Midnight Mass.
Okay.
It's a mini series set on an island off the coast of somewhere in America, a isolated little island. And then the premise of this, it's a metaphorical story where there's a priest, and then there's the main character was in prison because he's an alcoholic and he killed a girl in a motor accident while he was drunk. Comes back home, but the island is sort of falling apart because there was an oil spill and the fishing can't happen anymore. And then there's this creature that attacks the island, but it comes in the form, it's actually the priest. It's taken over the body of the priest.
It's always the priest.
but what Midnight Mass? It's
Midnight
really
Mass.
Really good.
Yeah. Anything happened in Silver Bullet? The werewolf was the priest.
No, actually, it's not the, but the premise is brilliant, and this it's about this whole, very critical of the Roman Catholic Church, obviously, but also of other cults, where this whole community is then on this island, is taken over, and this creature feeds off the blood of people.
Yeah. There's always blood. Jesus has blood too.
Exactly, and it's with the purpose of showing that religion sucks people dry, and the moment so the main character starts to question, why does it have to be like this? What's happening here? Why? And he, ironically, it's this ironic twist, because the main character stands up to the blood-sucking beast, but in that process, he sacrifices his own life to set the island free. But he sets them free by saying, "And don't be spooked. Don't fall for this." And he helps his younger brother and another lead character to escape off the island, to warn other people that the message, religion is dangerous. Really watch it. It's brilliant.
So
that sounds good. I'll check that out.
It amazes me. It amazes me because there's so many series that denigrate religion as the villain. I mean, it was in Star Trek, it's in Doctor Who, it's in pretty much any sci-fi movie you like to mention. There's always, I mean, Planet of the Apes, there's always worship, there's always, the trappings of religion, and that's always on the bad side of things.
Yeah,
but this story, it's so much fun as well. I mean, it's got a little bit of sci-fi, it's got a little bit of romance, and it's so well done. The plot is good, the camera, it's just well crafted with a very, very deep philosophical message as well. So you said one other thing, Nate, that I'm interested in, and I'd like to know how is it the open church, not a church, the secular you're a minister. You perform. Do you perform weddings? Do you officiate? Besides the Satanic Temple.
I am allowed to officiate weddings, but I don't.
Okay.
Mm.
I don't. I don't.
Okay. Did you have to go through some sort of a process to become a
No, it was just it's literally just, you could get it right now. It's
You can
just
buy
a questionnaire. It's a questionnaire online, and you fill it out, and if you care enough
Ooh.
to fill out the questionnaire, they email you back, and then you respond to the email, and they
Yeah.
send you a little doctorate. I mean, not a diploma.
I'm
only in America,
They
though.
don't send you a
South Africa.
doctorate.
I'm tempted. I'm tempted.
Wait, I'm going to sign up for 3 of them.
We have a skeptic in this country who points out how medicines can be false. I can't remember his name now. It's Gold something or other, because he's from a Jewish family. But he bought a doctorate for his cat.
Okay.
It cost him $150. You can do this sort of thing. I'm tempted to become a minister.
Well, Nate, I want to put a challenge to you, just to get back to your apologist thing. If you can get hold of William Lane Craig, and you can get some correspondence with him going, I'd love to hear what he tells you about his defense for the Amalekite slaughter and the slaughter of the Philistines. I'd love to hear you. You know what he said? That all those Philistine babies that were killed on God's order, they were actually done in mercy, because if they weren't killed as babies, they would have gone straight to hell, and now they're in heaven.
Well,
I'm not on board with that one. That don't feel right to me. Killing babies is wrong.
Absolutely.
Well, have you checked out William Craig? Are you familiar with William Lane Craig? I
know who that is, but I gotta tell you, I'm not a big reader. Mostly...
check out his interview with Alex O'Connor, the Cosmic Skeptic.
Yeah, for sure. I will.
Yeah. And please do try to get hold of him. I'd love to see you engage him on the slaughter of those Amalekite babies.
William Lane Craig. Yeah. That guy, he's kooky. He's a kooky guy. Yeah. I know it took me a second. I know who you're talking about now. He's a pretty kooky guy.
Yeah. Do you want to say anything about your group, the Giallo Press International?
That's just a Giallo Press International is a news organization that I started. I put out most of my press through my Facebook news feed. You can read the stories there anytime. They're in reverse chronological order, obviously. And I do take submissions for stories and photographs.
Great.
Via Facebook Messenger, actually. If you can message me a story or message me a photo, and I think it's newsworthy.
You'll publish it. Great. Thank you for the invitation.
We can try that. Definitely try that.
We could get
John, I want to I have some news. I'll give feedback next week.
Ooh.
I'm going to church tomorrow.
Ooh.
Wow. Yes.
Maybe if you're lucky, you'll get to engage in ritualized cannibalism and blood drinking.
Yes.
No, not the church that I'm going to tomorrow. I'm actually going to the church that I used to attend my whole life. It's the Reformed Church. It's a very conservative Afrikaans.
Wow.
I'm going particularly to listen to the newly refurbished church organ. The one that plays the music, not the other one. Not that one. So everybody's will be safe, and I'm going to engage in some hymn singing.
Wow, okay.
Yes, because I love singing, and I'm going to, the organ was refurbished, so I'm going to listen. I was invited in particular because I run a little school on the premises of the church, and the caretaker happened to hear me sing to the children, and he said, "Come and join us. Come and sing with us."
You passed the
Congratulations.
audition. Well done. Yeah, great.
Yes.
So,
And I promise not to question the minister about his sermon, but I'll let you go how it went.
yeah. Well, have a nice sing next week. But on the subject of next week, on the subject of next week, I want to announce that there won't be the usual Free Thought Hour next week, because instead we have Changing Minds in Changing Times, an event in London, and we're considering live streaming it for nothing. And the speakers include Lawrence Krauss, anthropologist David Orenstein, holy humanist Nuria Khan, Guru Buster Sanal Edamaruku, and psychologist Chris French. And that will be starting a bit earlier than our usual show. And in fact, it'll start 3 hours earlier, and it will finish at the time our Free Thought Hour normally begins. So there you go. Look forward to that. 3 hours of top-class speakers.
And I will just express the hope here in public on YouTube. I would express the hope that this time the co-host at the far and dark end of Africa might get a little bit of a phone call, a WhatsApp call, to just say hi to the people there that the host mingles with. You know, maybe the host will think about his co-host sitting here in darkness. You know, I'm just dropping a hint there. It's a little bit like sending a prayer. Just a little bit like sending a prayer. But you know.
Okay. Hint received. If I
will remind you because last year you left me out of the loop completely.
Okay. Remind me, and then I'll try and get you on screen for everyone to hear your greeting. That would be wonderful.
Tell Lawrence Krauss I said hi. I love that guy.
Okay, yeah, I will. Yeah, he's terrific, isn't he? Yeah. Anyway,
I love all of them, and I've actually met, well, not in person, Sanal, and David is a dear friend. I've spoken a little bit. Yeah. So yes, but if the host will remember his co-host, I will remind him. Nate, it was lovely talking to you.
Yeah, I've had so much fun. I can't believe how casual this really was. I thought I was going to be nervous, and then you guys were just like, "Oh, it was great, great time, a lot of fun."
We're not even afraid of Satanists.
Well, me neither, I guess.
Thank you for your kind words, and thank you very much for coming on our show. Say goodbye.
Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.